But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt.
Elon Musk is exactly right. Our national debt and the interest on that national debt is an existential threat to the United States. There was some corruption of the process there. Welcome, Patriots, to this episode of Common Sense for America. In this episode, we're going to talk about current events, and one of those is the activity of D.O.G.E, the Department of Government Efficiency, as led by Elon Musk. Now, there's a lot of controversy and a lot of pushback. You may remember that we had an episode on completely devoted to D.O.G.E where we warned that there would be significant pushback from members of Congress, from bureaucrats, and from the bureaucratic employees. And that, in fact, has come to pass. And yet, D.O.G.E is promising to be very effective in saving upwards of $1 trillion of government expense, about 15% of the budget. Let's listen to this excerpt from President Trump's first cabinet meeting where Elon Musk addresses the cabinet.
The overall goal here with the D.O.G.E team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt, now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here. And taking a lot of flack, and getting a lot of death threats, by the way. I'm gonna stack them up, you know. But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt. That's why it has to be done.
Elon Musk is exactly right. Our national debt and the interest on that national debt is an existential threat to the United States. I mean, it's inconceivable. It would have been inconceivable to me in 2008 when our national debt was about $11.1 trillion, that today it would be 36 and approaching $37 trillion, and that the interest on that debt would be in excess of our entire defense budget. He's absolutely right. This is an existential threat, and we must cut the federal budget in order to reduce our debt and reduce the interest and eliminate this existential threat to the nation. Now, understand the budget, which is about $7.3 trillion in the 2025 fiscal year, is largely not discretionary. Only about 14% of that budget is discretionary in that Congress can decide whether to spend it or not. The vast majority of the budget is for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, and interest on the debt. Now that's 86% of the budget, and they're all mandated by law. So I say, well, how in the hell is D.O.G.E and Musk going to save $1 trillion from the budget, which is amounts to about 17% of the budget? Well, there's a lot of discretionary spending out there which can be cut, some by executive order and others by act of Congress. And the United States Aid and Investment Department, USAID, classic example where they found billions of dollars of waste on providing $15 million to some obscure country for transgender evaluations. I'm exaggerating now, forgive me, but there's lots of waste in that, and they found tens of billions of dollars in that category. They've also identified that Social Security is cutting checks for thousands of people, maybe 60,000 people, who, according to the statistics that Social Security has, these people are probably dead. They are more than 90 years old, and they're very likely dead, and we've been paying checks out to these people fraudulently. Somebody's collecting and cashing these checks, and that's fraud. Another example is in Medicare. Medicare spending has gone up almost 50% in the last 10 years. And it's mostly due to what I call scope creep, where the Obama and Biden administrations started allowing Medicare money to be spent on things other than medical services for children, poor children, elderly and disabled people. They've expanded this program to include money for non-medical issues and for able-bodied Americans. This is a tremendous expansion of that program and a tremendous expansion of that expense. So that is going to have to be addressed. Do I think we can find $1 trillion worth of savings? Yes, I can. The easy part will be finding the savings. The hard part will be getting Congress and the bureaucrats to cooperate with eliminating what common sense will tell you is very, very wasteful spending. Now, assuming the DOGE numbers are correct as to the amount of mistakes and fraud in Social Security, the savings will be enormous. And what's really interesting is that we will very likely save Social Security from insolvency. It's currently projected to be insolvent in 2035. Now, a detailed audit of Social Security will tell us whether or not these checks are going out fraudulently or not. Maybe this is just an accounting computer error and checks are not going out, but a detailed audit will explain that. God knows, if ever there was an audit needed, this is that case. The United States Agency for International Development, USAID is the acronym that people use, is an agency that was created in the 1990s, I believe, as a means of funding, quickly funding aid to developing countries. Now, the original concept was that the then Soviet Union and the Chinese were funneling a lot of money to developing countries to advance their causes and their ideology, and we needed a way to counteract that. This agency was given a budget, and it was allowed to dispense that money as it sees fit without any oversight from Congress. And Congress routinely increased that budget with encouragement from the CIA, who sometimes used that budget for their own covert purposes. So there was some corruption of the process there. Now that we're looking into what they're spending that money on, we're finding that the vast majority of it shouldn't have ever been spent, and it's for frivolous and ridiculous purposes. Now, certainly the CIA doesn't like the fact that their little cookie jar, their sugar jar, if you will, is no longer available to them. Well, that's just tough.